Over the years, Firmenich has recognized and acted upon the need for safety, health, and environmental excellence in the workplace. The personal safety and health of each employee, contractor, and guests are our number one concern. We strive to provide a safe workplace free of hazards. We follow the best available technology in design, construction, operation, and maintenance of our facilities, and comply fully with all worker safety and health regulations. As a guest or contract employee, you have a role in our plant safety and loss prevention effort. Your work at Firmenich is governed by OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, by NJDEP, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, as well as various other state and local regulations, and finally by our Firmenich policies and procedures. This program will assist you in becoming familiar with our policies and procedures that you must follow in order to work at Firmenich, and will provide you with general information to help familiarize you with your surroundings. Let's get started with your Firmenich orientation. All contract employees and guests are required to park in the administration building parking lot or the plant office parking lot for ingredients personnel. Contractors must park in the contractor parking area located on the southwest section of the administration building's parking lot. If a service or equipment vehicle is needed at a location away from the parking lot area, a contractor must obtain permission to park in that location from your facility contact or the supervisor of that subject area. If you are permitted to park in an alternate location, be sure that you do not block emergency exits, firefighting equipment, or hinder normal plant activities. First and foremost, all employees must card in, and all contractors and guests must sign in and out whenever entering or exiting the facility. Accurate records of your arrival and departure are important pieces of information that allow Firmenich to account for your whereabouts in the event of an emergency. When a contractor signs in, they will be issued an ID badge at their reception areas located in the administration building. This badge is to be displayed in a visible location at all times while on site. While you are in the reception area, pick up a copy of Firmenich Safety and Conduct Policy Brochure and our HS&E Charter. A map of the facility is included in the brochure. Even with policies and the implementation of safety precautions, it is still up to each individual to ensure a safe working environment. General plant safety rules have been established to assist you in the prevention of accidents and incidents. These rules apply to all personnel that enter the facility, regardless of their job function. Let's review some general information and work rules. Firmenich has an alcohol and drug program that prohibits the possession or drinking of alcoholic beverages at any time while on company property or reporting to work while under the influence of alcohol. Also prohibited is the use, possession, distribution, or sale of drugs. Commission of any of these acts will lead to immediate expulsion from the facility and will be reported to the police if appropriate. Horseplay, fighting, gambling, or the possession of firearms is not permitted on the site. Running on site is prohibited except for emergency situations. The use of cameras requires prior written authorization. In addition, while you're on site, you are subject to unannounced searches of your person, property, and vehicles at any time. Compliance with this program is a condition of your being allowed entry to our facility. Because of the hazardous nature of some of the materials handled here, control of potential ignition sources is an absolute necessity. Firmenich is a tobacco-free facility. Smoking is not permitted anywhere on Firmenich property. Eating and drinking shall be limited to the cafeterias, offices, conference rooms, and break rooms. You will also find convenient storage areas for your PPE in the cafeterias. The need to communicate is an integral part of business today, and Firmenich understands that companies need to communicate with their home office, suppliers, and even with other clients. Pagers and cell phones have become commonplace in everyday life, but what you don't know about these devices could result in a potentially dangerous situation. That is why Firmenich prohibits cell phones and pagers in the plant areas. This also applies to other devices such as cameras, video equipment, and radios. A manufacturing facility is a dynamic and potentially hazardous environment, and Firmenich is no exception. Knowing where the potential hazards are is half the battle. To assist in identifying potentially hazardous areas, signs have been posted throughout indicating where personal protective equipment, or PPE, is required. Personal protective equipment is not required in the guardhouse, parking areas, office areas, locker rooms, or cafeterias. You may remove or relax your personal protective equipment in these areas. Remember to don personal protective equipment when entering a personal protective equipment required area. If you have any procedural questions about safety equipment in any area, please ask your facility contact for clarification. While safety regulations and safe work practices minimize the chance for injury, personal protective clothing and equipment is required in the plant. Personal protection equipment includes hard hats, eye protection, and shirts with sleeves covering the shoulders and trousers covering the legs and ankles. All contract employees must wear industrial quality shoes equipped with steel toes. Personal protective equipment is required in the following areas. All processing areas within the ingredients plant including Pad 1, Pad 2, Pads 3 and 3A, Pad 4, Pads 5 and 5A, drum storage areas, storage tank farms, finished product warehouse, and laboratories. All processing areas within the flavors plant including Duraroom, spray dry, laboratories, and the warehouse. These areas are subject to specific personal protective equipment, permitting and procedural requirements to ensure the safety of all personnel. On July 1, 2010, our new state-of-the-art flavors facility also implemented PPE requirements. In our flavors facility, good manufacturing practices, proper hygiene practices are essential for day-to-day operations. The company's personal hygiene standards should be documented and adopted by all personnel, including contractors and visitors to the production facility. All visitors must put on a disposable lab coat available in the hygiene room or other company-issued uniforms when they enter into the GMP area. Headwear, such as hairnets, should ensure that head hair is completely covered to minimize potential contamination. All hairnets and beard nets are one use only. They must be replaced every time you enter the GMP area. When wearing hairnets, please make sure that the hair is fully covered over the ears. When wearing beard nets, please make sure that the net goes over the mouth. In the GMP area, if you need to replace existing hair nets or beard nets, please step away from the open product and packaging area before replacing it to prevent contamination. Gloves are a potential source of foreign bodies. Insufficient control needs to be put in place, such as regular inspection and replacement of gloves to ensure that they are intact and do not lose fibers. Disposable blue gloves are one use only. They must be replaced every time you enter the GMP area. Heat-resistant gloves and other non-disposal gloves must be kept in the GMP area. In the GMP area, if you need to replace existing gloves, please step away from the open product and packaging area before replacing them to prevent contamination. Good manufacturing practices that are good. If you are sick, communicable diseases must not be allowed in the facility where there is a possibility of contaminating food surfaces, packaged material, and equipment or finished products. All wounds must be fully covered by blue metallized band-aids and covered with gloves. Dress. Have clean outer garments. Wear hairnets and beard nets and gloves as required. Wash hands before work, after returning to facilities, and anytime hands become soiled. Fingernail cosmetics, tobacco, jewelry, food, and drinks are potential contaminants and are not allowed in the GMP area. GMP areas prohibit undulated paper, eating, drinking, and tobacco products. Grounds. The ground should be free of litter, waste, and uncut grass, and properly stored equipment. This will prevent a breeding place for rodents and other pests. Food contact surfaces should be cleaned before use. Also clean non-food contact surfaces according to sanitation schedule to prevent food contamination. Supplies and ingredients must be removed before cleaning the area so as not to contaminate them. Product spillage must be cleaned immediately. As appropriate sanitary facilities, sanitary toilets and hand washing facilities will be provided by management. Production and processes controls adulterated food and must be disposed of in a way that prevents contamination of other foods. Unfortunately, even with the observance of policy, procedures, and the personal use of protective equipment, accidents still occur. In the event that you are involved in an accident at the Firmenich site, you must conform to the following. All accidents resulting in personal injury or damage to Firmenich equipment must be reported immediately to your supervisor, facility contact, or plant management. An incident investigation and a report must be completed before the end of the injured party's work shift. If a medical emergency exists, immediately contact Firmenich management or by dialing 9, then 911 from any telephone to reach the City of Newark emergency personnel. Give the following information to the on-duty operator: name, nature of emergency, location, and type of assistance required. Your contact will notify EMS and on-duty Firmenich personnel. Please remain in the area until help arrives. If conditions become unsafe, move to a common or occupied area and wait for assistance. During emergencies, the facility alert notification system will be activated. When an emergency occurs, you must immediately stop all work, turn off all machines, power tools, and heavy equipment. Leave the area on foot, proceeding to one of the 2 evacuation points. When walking to the evacuation point, you should proceed upwind or crosswind from the location of the emergency. Look for smoke, vapors, or steam to determine wind direction. If you are driving when you become aware of an emergency, immediately pull your vehicle off to the side of the road. Shut the engine off, leave the keys in the ignition, and proceed on foot to the proper evacuation point. If you are in the administration and flavors buildings, the evacuation point is located along the western portion of the parking lot. Look for Evacuation Point 1 on the solar panel array column. For the plant, the evacuation point is at the southwest gate. Please familiarize yourself with these locations. You will remain at the evacuation point until you receive official instructions to return to your work site. You can report a fire, spill, injury, chemical release, or any emergency by notifying any company employee or by simply dialing 9, then 911 to get the City of Newark emergency personnel. But you should take reasonable steps to make sure your supervisor and facility contact is informed. In addition, Firmenich has several types of local alarms such as LEL, the lower explosive limit, carbon monoxide, and high-level alarms. If you are in a production building when the LEL alarm or strobe light goes off, please immediately exit the building. Likewise, if you're in the Pad 2 or bulk storage area and the carbon monoxide strobe light goes off, please leave the area immediately. Finally, if a bell sound is heard near any storage tank, sump, or process vessel indicating a high level, please leave the area for your own safety. Before arriving on site to begin work, each contractor must pre-qualify and be approved by the Firmenich Health, Safety, and Environmental Department. Once approved, contractors will be allowed to work on the site. Contractors must comply with the Firmenich Contractor Program, plant site rules, as well as all applicable local, state, and federal regulations. The contractor is responsible for training his or her employees in the safe work practices necessary to successfully complete the specific job. Contractors are required to use properly trained employees. While in our facility, contractors are under the general guidance of their facility contact, however, are directly and solely responsible for their employees and subcontractors. Contractors must comply with training requirements set forth in any applicable EPA, DOT, or OSHA regulation. In the event of OSHA violations or unsafe practices, immediate action must be taken to stop the work and correct the hazardous situation. If violations continue or corrective actions are not taken, Firmenich has the option of terminating the work and contract. Individual violators may be permanently banned. Successful completion of this program allows individuals access to this site. It does not grant certification for any required training that may be necessary to perform your job. Any specialized training such as confined space entry, excavation and trenching, crane operations, or lockout-tagout is the responsibility of the contractor, and documentation must be submitted prior to beginning work. Let's begin by reviewing the Firmenich Hazard Communication Program. Potential health hazards from products or raw materials can result from direct, unprotected exposure, such as inhalation, absorption through the skin and eyes, or ingestion. To support the right to know laws for everyone working on our site, Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDSs, for all materials being used in our processes and equipment maintenance are easily accessible. The contractor can obtain these through the facility contact or the area supervisor. If you need additional information about a particular chemical or material present at our facility, please contact your contractor sponsor, who will refer you to the material safety data sheets for the particular substance in question. Similarly, the facility contact or the Health, Safety, and Environmental HS&E department must approve of all chemicals used by the contractor before being brought into the facility. All contractors and contractor personnel are required to follow industry practices, facility procedures, and all federal, state, and local regulations when handling hazardous materials. The facility contact or the HS&E department must approve the location, method, and disposal of hazardous materials. The NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, System 704, serves as a hazard index for the health, flammability, and reactivity for containerized materials. The system consists of 4 colored fields, with each corresponding to the material's characteristics. The blue field represents the health indicator. The red field represents the flammability indicator. The yellow field represents the reactivity indicator, and the white field represents the specific hazard indicator. A number within each field represents the hazard rating or the severity of each material's characteristic. 0 indicates a minimum hazard, 1 a slight hazard, 2 a moderate hazard, 3 a serious hazard, and 4 a severe hazard. The white field, or specific hazard, is identified by either a graphic or a specific word indicating a specific hazard of the subject material. Please refer to the reference charts located throughout the plant explaining all meanings. Similar to the NFPA diamond is the HMIS label. Again, the blue bar represents the health indicator, the red bar represents the flammability indicator, and the yellow bar represents the reactivity indicator. But on the HMIS label, the white bar represents the protective equipment required. The letter that appears in the white bar is key to specific personal protective gear. Please refer to the reference charts located throughout the plant explaining all meanings. GHS pictograms is a globally harmonized system. These icons have specific hazards. An exploding bomb means that this chemical can blow up. The flame symbol means flammable chemicals can catch fire easily and burst into flames. The environmental symbol means that this chemical can kill fish and other life that live in the water. The corrosion symbol means explosive chemicals can cause serious damage to the skin and eyes. They can also eat away at clothing, metal, and working surfaces. A gas cylinder means that this chemical can explode, rocket, or harm health if the cylinder is heated, ruptured, or leaking. The flame over circle symbol means that oxidizing chemicals can react with other materials, causing them to burn or explode. The health hazard symbol means prolonged exposure to this chemical may cause health problems such as cancer or birth defects. Some chemicals may cause asthma or damage to specific organs of the body. The exclamation point means that this chemical may cause immediate health effects, such as skin rashes or respiratory irritation. Some chemicals may damage the ozone layer. The skull and crossbones symbol means exposure to the chemical can cause immediate or possibly serious health problems. If your eyes come in contact with chemicals or other hazardous materials, go to the nearest eye wash station and flush for at least 15 minutes. Hold your eyes open and let the water completely rinse the eyes. As soon as possible, seek proper medical attention. Chemical contact with your skin or clothing requires generous flushing at the nearest safety shower to prevent skin irritation or chemical burns. Any clothing contaminated with chemicals must be removed. Showering for at least 15 minutes is recommended, followed up with a medical examination. If you are unfamiliar with the nearest eye wash and safety shower locations in your work area, be sure to check them out before you begin work. Additional protective clothing may be required for specific jobs beyond the personal protective equipment mentioned earlier. Hearing protection is required where noise levels exceed OSHA standards. You must wear proper hearing protection whenever you see this caution sign. Some jobs require the use of respiratory protection. Contractors are required to select and supply the proper respirator for the job. All employees who will be required to use a respirator must be trained in their use, including how to obtain a proper fit. If you are going to be operating any vehicle or a piece of heavy equipment in our facility, you must first get the necessary clearance and instructions. When driving through the site, please observe the posted speed limit of 5 miles per hour. Be aware of those around you and pay particular attention to the pedestrian and forklift traffic throughout the site. Firmenich receives raw materials in bulk quantities, and at times there are tractor-trailers traversing the site. Please yield to the larger vehicles moving throughout the site. Never ever leave a vehicle running while unattended. A vehicle left running presents a potential hazard. Leave the keys in the ignition in case it has to be moved during a plant emergency. Drivers must not park their vehicles or equipment so as to block any road or intersection without first obtaining permission from the facility contact. This includes loading or unloading operations. Drivers must shut off the motor and set the brakes before leaving the cab of any vehicle. Vehicles with hazardous materials on board must be attended continually while loading and unloading. When backing up any large piece of equipment in congested areas or when the driver's visibility is limited or in tight quarters, use a second person as a guide. The contractor will be held responsible for any damage to company property, including roads, guardrails, and walks and curbs. If you are expecting a delivery, please notify the on-duty security team member. Unannounced deliverers may be rejected. Occasionally, site work will require excavation or similar activity that will create a hole or opening that is a potential fall hazard. Please use handrails when climbing stairs or walking on catwalks. OSHA-approved safety harnesses and lanyards must be used whenever working a height greater than 4 feet or whenever a fall hazard exists. Ladders brought into the facility must meet OSHA standards, be in good condition, and used only for the intended purpose. All extension ladders must be held by another worker or tied off when used by an unaccompanied worker. All scaffolding must be erected, level, and plumb on a firm base according to OSHA standards. When working from hanging scaffolds, workers must wear a safety harness attached to the individual lifelines. The lifelines must be attached to the structure, not the scaffold. Safety harnesses are required to be worn when work is 10 feet or greater above grade and no standard work platform is provided. When performing work above grade, in areas where other workers will be traveling, the area below must be roped off with barricade tape. This warns others that overhead work is underway. The use of Firmenich equipment and materials by contractors is prohibited unless approval by plant management has been obtained. Specifically, the use of forklifts and man lifts is forbidden without proof of training and approval by management. Crane operation, construction, or demolition is also commonplace at an industrial facility. Proper training is of paramount importance in identifying and controlling potential hazards when involving these activities. OSHA has established standards for crane operations. You, as a contractor, are expected to be trained in any applicable standard and to satisfy these training requirements. Failure to follow common electrical safety practices, specifically lockout and tagout procedures, leads to numerous serious injuries and fatalities each year at industrial facilities around the country. Our facility has rigid procedures for proper lockout and tagout of equipment to ensure every worker's safety. Before you begin work on any electrically operated equipment, make sure there is a Danger Do Not Operate tag and that the electrical disconnect breaker has been locked out and tagged, placing your own padlock and tag on the lockout clip. All electrical work must be performed by a qualified electrician in accordance with the National Electrical Code. When you are involved in trenching and excavations, make certain they are shored or the material that has been removed is properly sloped to prevent a cave-in. In trenches and excavations, 4 feet or more in depth, adequate means of exit such as steps or ladders must be provided and located so as to require no more than 25 feet of lateral travel. And as a reminder, trenches 4 feet deep or more require vapor tests and an entry permit. OSHA has established standards for trenching and excavation operations. Properly authorized permits are required before proceeding with many types of work. They will be obtained from the contract coordinator and posted at the worksite. Permit instructions must be followed to the letter. Initially, before any work or equipment can be done in the operating area, an equipment release form must be completed. Written permits are required for hot work, which involves any job where a source of ignition will be present. The permit is your authorization to use the particular ignition generating equipment needed for the work. It contains important information concerning the precautions and conditions that must be maintained for the permit to remain valid. The contractor should review the conditions of the permit and answer any questions you may have. The contractor will have to provide a fire watch during the time a burning or welding torch is in use. Circumstances and conditions of the job will determine the safety requirements and fire watch duties. Be sure to ask your supervisor about any special conditions or duties and review them prior to the start of work. A written permit is also required for entry into any confined space. A confined space is one where a person physically enters a space with restricted openings that could hamper the ability to enter or leave, where toxic or flammable vapors can accumulate, or where an oxygen-deficient atmosphere could exist. Confined space entries require special precautions and equipment that will vary with each situation. At Firmenich, we also require continuous air monitoring of the confined space. A copy of the permit must be posted near the entrance to the confined space. Standby personnel wearing the same type of equipment as those who will enter are required to remain on watch on certain entry jobs. Again, be sure you review the standby instructions prior to any entry into a confined space. If you plan to have compressed gas cylinders on site, do not store them inside any building, vehicle, or structure. No weekend or holiday work will occur without prior written approval from plant management. Firmenich believes in maintaining a clean work environment. Contractors are responsible for keeping their work areas clean and free of debris and trash. Periodic housekeeping inspections will be conducted to ensure contractor compliance. This program was developed to protect you. The information presented is a brief summary of the safety information and instructions for contractors who will be working at Firmenich. If there is a question on any of these procedures or practices, ask your supervisor or your facility contact before starting the job. Maintaining a safe and helpful workplace requires commitment and cooperation from each of us. Do your part because everyone's counting on you. Remember, safety does pay. Take the time to make sure the job is safe before beginning work. Firmenich and you, working safely together.